Hi, I'm Brandon Bays, and I just wanted to share a little bit with you about the whole subject of attachment and non-attachment. And there's always such a big word in the spiritual community, how we should all be non-attached and have a lighter relationship to the people and the things in our life. And I was one time sitting with Guru Mai, a master, and she told this beautiful story about attachment. That once upon a time, a long time ago, there was this king who was an enlightened master. And he'd grown old in his years. And he happened to own a 12-cup teacup set that had been passed down from the ancient Rajas all through the generations, hundreds of years old, was the rarest teacup set in the world, but he only had 11 of the 12 cups. And his whole life, he'd been walking through all the villages, and he was a wealthy king. He owned shipping industries and merchant concerns, and yet he was still an enlightened master. And he'd grown old in his years, and he was walking through a village with his disciple. And he came across this dusty old shop window that had all kinds of bric-a-brac in it and antiques in it. And there, he spied the cup that he had been looking for over 70 years. And he turned to his disciple. He said, "Oh my goodness, there's my cup. I've been looking for this all my life long. It's been passed down generationally through all the Rajas before me. And we finally found it after all these years." Now inside the shop, the shopkeeper, he knew who owned the other 11 cups, and he knew the value of this astronomically expensive and rare teacup. And so he turned to his wife and he said, "Oh, finally, we're going to be able to buy that palace by the banks of the river Ganga in Varanasi." And so he opened the door and he welcomed the master in. And the master said, "I noticed you have a teacup in your window, and I'd like to purchase that cup." And the shopkeeper said, "Well, that is a very rare cup. It's the most valuable teacup in the world, and I'm sorry, but it's likely going to go for an astronomical price." And so he named that astronomical price, and the master very simply said, "No, I'm going to take it at this price. This is a fair price. It's actually the right price. It's the appropriate price for the teacup." Now, disgruntled, this shopkeeper thought, "Here I am talking to an enlightened master, and he's arguing me like we're in the fish market together, bargaining with me." And he thought, okay, if I, cut it in half, I'll at least be able to buy a mansion. Maybe not a palace, but I'll be able to buy a mansion. And he said to the master, he said, "Swamiji, you drive a hard bargain, but for you, I will cut the price in half. It'll be this price." And the master said, "No, you don't understand. I will only take it at this price. It's a fair price. It's the right price. It's the appropriate price." And just shocked that he's still negotiating with an enlightened master. And he calculates, okay, I may not be able to buy a mansion, but if I cut it in half again, I could at least buy a large house. And he says, "Swamiji, I'm going to cut it in half for you again, but that is my final price. That's the absolute rock bottom price." And he cut it in half. And the master said, "I think you don't really understand. I'm only going to take it at this price." But it was lovely to see my teacup that I would have completed to make my 12 cups set complete. It was lovely to see it again. And he walked out of the shop. Now, the disciple who had been watching the whole negotiations had spied a sword over the top of the where they were sitting next to the till, and he had this lust, this thirst to have this sword. He thought, it's going to be this sword that will cut away the demons of the mind, and I'm going to put it over the master's picture. And so they walked out of the tea shop, the bric-a-brac shop, and they didn't get even 100 yards away. But the shopkeeper came running after them both and said, "Oh, Swamiji, you can have it at your price." So Swamiji came back in and they began tying up the teacup and paying for it. And the disciple thought he would try it on, just like the master. And he said, "Well, I've noticed you've got this sword up above, and I'd like to purchase that sword." And the shopkeeper looks up behind him and he says, "Oh, well, that's a very rare sword. It's going to come at an astronomical price." And he named the price. And of course, the disciple said, "No, I'll only take it at this price. It's a fair price. It's the right price." And he cut it in half. "I'll only take it at this price. It's a fair price, the right price." And cut it in half again. And he said, "That's my final price." "No, I'll only take it at this price. It's a fair price, the right price." And so they finished up tying up the teacup and walked out of the shop together. And they kept walking, and they got about a mile down the road, and all the time the disciple's looking back. Why hasn't the shopkeeper come running after me the way he came running after the master? And he turned to the master after they had gotten a mile down the road, and he said, "Swamiji, why didn't the shopkeeper come after me? I did exactly what you did." And the master said, "Yes, but do you still lust after that cup? After that sword?" And the disciple said, "Well, yes, didn't you crave that cup? You've been looking for it for all these years." And the master was silent. And this disciple realized he'd overstepped the bounds. And he said, "Well, Swamiji, tell me what your secret was, that you didn't lust after that cup, after all these years." He said, "The reason that shopkeeper didn't come after you is because he knows that you still hunger for that sword. He can smell your thirst. He knows that tomorrow you're going to be his first customer, and you're going to take it at his price, not your price." And he said, "But how is it? What is your secret?" And the master answered, "My secret is that every night before I go to bed, I imagine all my factories, all my shipping companies, all my palace, and I burn it down. I offer it back up to God. Then I imagine my wife, my grandchildren, my children, and I offer them up to God. And I go to bed a poor man. And every morning, when I get up in the morning, I get down on my hands and knees, and I thank God that for one more day, He has loaned me those priceless gifts. Everything is on loan. And so I'm grateful and blessed for it each and every day. That life that God allows me to have, these people and these things in my life." Now, when I heard this beautiful story, It really touched me, and for a year following that story, I began to offer everything that was supposedly mine, my house, my family, my job, everything up to the infinite. And every day I woke up and there was just gratitude here for the people and the things in my life. A year later, my house burned down. And all I could feel was gratitude. It had only ever been on loan. All my belongings were gone. Even my car exploded in the fire. And we didn't have house insurance. And we lost everything. And yet, what I learned from that is that I was very blessed each and every day for the time that I had that house, had that car, had my belongings, had my clothes, for the time that I had it in my life. So when I suggest to people to be unattached, what I mean is to have a light relationship to the people and things in your life. Because the truth of the matter is, people come and people go. And lifestyles come and lifestyles go. Jobs come, jobs go. Houses come, houses go. Belongings come and belongings go. And then there is this that you are, this love, this gratitude that does not come and does not go. And so you might even like to try that little experiment. Offer everything up to the infinite at night. Get up every morning in the gratitude here that everything in your life has been gifted to you for yet one more day. Namaste.